name's Matt Kibble. I'm the Director of Product Management at Bloomsbury Digital Resources. And I'm going to give kind of an update to a talk which I gave at the STM Digital Publishing Seminar 3 years ago, just in case anybody was there and remembers it at all and was paying attention. It's obviously a very long time ago, but when I gave that first talk, the platform had only just been launched. And so now that it's been live for almost 4 years, it's an opportunity to look back at the challenges that we've faced and perhaps some lessons that we might have learned. I've called it the growing pains of building a bespoke publishing platform, but I'll also be touching on the story of our growing pains as an organization. We've rapidly expanded our in-house digital team in the last 4 years. And I think to some extent, we're probably still at a transitional phase. There could be some interesting decisions for the business in future about how we keep changing as we expand and move forwards. So first, looking back at the context for how we developed this platform. In between 2012 and 2015, we were effectively launching one new platform per year throughout those 4 years. And they were all really different, very different content, very different use cases. We used different developers for some of them. So there was the Churchill Archive, which is a primary source image archive database. Drama Online, which was launched with playtexts. So it's a specialist functionality around displaying plays and searching for them, finding plays. And then Bloomsbury Collections was your standard academic ebook platform. Bloomsbury Fashion Central was quite ambitious. We combined textbook, e-commerce and rental services alongside institutional reference and image databases. So yeah, really diverse content types, each on their separate platforms. And each of those, developing each of those required, a lengthy design and development phase, quite expensive, quite big investment. And we had really quite a small team at the time. There was only about 10 of us in digital development. And it was basically the same people working on one product after the other in sequence. We were quite reliant on a lot of external help from consultants and developers. But meanwhile, while we were developing all those products, the company was also coming up with lots of ideas for future products. So the fashion products and Drama Online had been really successful. And so we wanted to build on that success. And we'd actually come up with 10, at that stage, 10 proposals for new products, many of which were very similar to Berg Fashion Library. So Berg Fashion Library was a combination of a multi-volume reference work on world dress and fashion, together with books about fashion, integrated with multimedia content, images, video, museum collections. And so we wanted to do similar products for other subjects that we publish in: design, architecture, popular music, food studies, theology, philosophy, all kinds of areas. And what we thought was that a generic platform solution, some kind of off-the-peg platform, would not work for this because there's such a variety of different content types. Each one of these product ideas comprised a different combination of encyclopedias, books, images, articles, primary sources. And we also took the decision that these subject areas were different enough that they should really have their own separate sites. So, we knew this was quite unusual at the time. The whole kind of tendency in the market for the 10 years before that was for specialist sites by one publisher to all come together and be aggregated. But it just didn't make any sense to us. We had one product that was fashion catwalk videos, another one that was going to be theology texts, another one was music encyclopedias. We couldn't imagine a user who would want to cross-search all of that. And so we decided they should all be separate kind of subject-based sites. And so what happened was Bloomsbury decided to set up a separate division, Bloomsbury Digital Resources. Instead of having people in all different departments coming together to work on the digital resources, we'd have a dedicated team, and we would then put a big investment into it and have a real project to deliver at least 5 new products a year over 5 years. And in order to do that, we needed a solution that could cope with all of that. So the medium-term plan was to deliver those 5 products a year, but then the longer-term plan would be to think about, although those what would become legacy platforms, about moving those onto the new platform as well in time. And so the solution that we came up with was something that we refer to in-house as the self-service platform. And this is something that, with the aim of it, one of the aims was to dramatically reduce our reliance on external help, consultants and developers to bring control in-house. And in order to do that, of course, we needed to build up specialist teams and skills in-house. And we didn't want to have to design and build each platform separately. So instead, we would build it all once, and the developers would build us an admin portal, which then allowed our teams to publish new platforms by themselves. And so the philosophy around it is based on content types. So there are something like 20 different content types, and we define in meticulous detail how each one works. And so we set about defining what an encyclopedia article looks like, what kind of metadata is compulsory for an encyclopedia article, what's optional, how is it structured, how do you navigate around an encyclopedia, what does the content page look like, what does the result look like. And then, even though we were using the popular music encyclopedia as the sample for that, all future encyclopedias on this platform would have to behave in that same way. And for the design library, they asked for a timeline. So you could show a nice interactive history of design with kind of key images from different periods, important events in the history and the context of design. And so we said, okay, we'll make that a generic feature, so other products can have a timeline as well, and we'll just define a standard data format which is flexible enough to be customized for each product. And as we started doing user experience research with the specific kind of users who would use these different platforms, so I talked to music librarians and students and academics. And we realized that, artist name was one of the key ways into the content. And although we didn't have encyclopedia articles or necessarily books about all of the artists, we had lots of relevant content about artists which needed to be surfaced. And so we thought we should create an artist page. So for all of the most common artists whose works are discussed, we would have a page, and then that would link you off into articles and books and relevant information about that artist. And then all of the design library, they had a reference work, which was biographies of the most important designers in history. And so we thought, okay, we can create a person content type, which could be generic and can work for both of those. And then if future products need, a philosopher content type or a theologian, then that can also just use this person feature as well. So the way it would work is we would have one big upfront investment piece of development work, and then once that was completed, we would have this admin portal, which our in-house staff, who would not need to be coders and software specialists, they would be able to load the content, configure the site, publish them live with hardly any intervention from the developers. And they would be able to just create these products by combining content types in any combination, choosing a color theme, loading a logo, designing a homepage, and so on, using templates and what have you. And then the site would integrate with, we would have one cloud storage solution for images, another one for video, that would all integrate with the loader. And we would use XML standards like DocBook. VRA is what we use for our metadata files, and then the drama texts and perhaps some other specialist content might use TEI instead. So what kind of challenges did we face? One challenge was that the theory was we would build the platform with all the sample content, get ourselves a nice tool, and then set about launching our products. But what happened was, due to commercial pressures, we needed to launch some of the products before the platform was completed, which caused quite a lot of disruption. And also, it also meant that there was a risk there of the sample content that we used for those first products. What happened was, in some cases, the solutions were kind of hard coded around the quirks of that particular content, and then it didn't apply to the next product when we came to load that. And that was a combination of the developers in some case making assumptions or assuming that every encyclopedia will be like the music encyclopedia, but also us not knowing what the differences would be of this other future content as it comes along. And that's one of the challenges, is we try to be generic, but the new content doesn't always fit the mold. We might be converting backlist reference works which were published in a very different style. We might be licensing content from other publishers that then turn out to have a different structure from our encyclopedias. One of the products we've just launched is a library of Catholic thought, and we licensed a Bible text to use there so that we could link up Bible references to one of the Jerome commentary on the Bible. And rather than treating Bible as a special new content type, we found a way to accommodate it with one of the existing sort of book content types that we had, and that actually worked fine. So there's always this tension between standardization and flexibility, basically. So whenever a new product comes along, an editor might say, we really need this new feature. And so we would then have to think about this not as a feature for this one product, but as a feature for the platform, which is going to become a generic reusable feature that could apply to any product and that might impact other products that are already live once we put it live in the platform. We think this platform is really extraordinarily flexible. Most publisher platforms are designed to handle one or two types of content, journals or books or data sets, whatever it might be. So whereas ours can handle 20. So in most cases, when a new product comes along and is proposed, they can mostly be accommodated within one of these existing content types. And it does mean you then have to make decisions. Here's a really trivial example. For one product, we need the PDF to be displayed as a single page, like one-up view by default. On another product, they wanted it as two-up because you have these two-page layouts. That needed to be the default. And so in those cases, we either say, no, you can't have it, or we say, okay, we're going to have to add another configuration option to the back end where you choose one-up or two-up for your PDF viewer. And that's a trivial example. It sounds like a small piece of work, but the more of those you have, then the more configuration options you have in the back end, the more things product managers have to remember when they're configuring a site and putting it live, the more complex it becomes to manage. So, so how does this affect the requirements that we have for staff? I mentioned that we've kind of rapidly expanded. We've scaled up a lot. We've also become more specialized than we were 4 years ago. But there's still further. We still could go further in that direction. So when 4 years ago, we had a couple of web editors. That was their job title. People who loaded content, worked on those specific products, edited web pages, did analytics reports, managed schedules. Now we've got an expanded product management team of 10 people whose role still includes those tasks, but has expanded to have responsibility for the user experience of the platform, really. So they're doing UX research, they're doing feature development, they're also loading the content, they're responsible for the visual design and layout. So they're a kind of a generalist team who are, still wearing quite a few different hats. And I think, at some stage, there would be a kind of enough of scale of work to have specialist functions for user experience, for analytics, for design, and so on. So those are all the kind of questions that we need to think about as this business matures over the years. And 4 years ago, we had what was called a data QA team, 3 or 4 people, quite a few of them on short-term contracts who were checking all of the XML before it got loaded. Now this has evolved into the content architecture team. So we have a chief content architect who's responsible for the XML schema for the whole company. and the team has now taken on tasks which were previously done by developers, such as working on the XSLTs, so not just on the content XML. And yeah, so these are all, I think this is what I was talking about when I mentioned the growing pains of the organization. We could have more specialist digital production people. At the moment, that function is kind of shared between the central production department, who also handle all of Bloomsbury's books, from Harry Potter to theology monographs, and it's shared between them and the various digital teams. So that's an area where in time we could easily create more specialist roles. And at times people ask whether we should bring development in-house, and I really think we're not at that scale yet. It doesn't yet make financial sense for us. Instead, we're keeping a balance of bringing some skills in-house, gradually some tasks, so that we have more control, but we still have all of the advantages of outsourcing, working with third-party developers. We still use different developers for different platforms as well. And that means that we can, scale up with those developers when we have a lot of work on, and scale down when we don't need so much work. So one of the big projects that we embarked on this year was migrating the first one of our legacy platforms onto the Bloomsbury publishing platform. And we did this with Drama Online, which had been originally built by Semantico in 2012. So Semantico, which is now part of Highwire. And this was a very complex project. It's a large content set, unusual content, play texts with this hierarchical XML structure, complex markup, specialist tools, and then a combination of, it's got video, images, all kinds of things. And it's also got 25 different products on one platform. And also it was quite high stakes. It's got the most number of customers, the highest usage, quite a lot of potential for really messing up badly if we messed up the migration and damaging our reputation with customers. Thankfully, that didn't happen. It all went very smoothly. But some of the challenges were, well, in terms of new development for the platform, this was obviously a brand new content type, the play text. We have plays like the Arden Shakespeare, which are complex scholarly editions with line numbers, marginal notes, commentary, textual notes, all that kind of stuff needs to be rendered. And we also, the original Drama Online platform had these features like being able to search for a monologue, being able to print out the part book. So if you're acting a part in a play, you can just print out your lines or your cues. So that was the expensive part. The specifying and then building those new features was a big expensive job, but it was perhaps not the most difficult part. More complicated was thinking through how the user experience would work when we took all that content from this platform and then loaded it onto our new platform, which has its own specific logic, its own way of doing things. And this proved a bit more complex than we'd allowed for, I think. I think it's fair to say. So a few months before launch, we did some user experience testing, and it threw up a few issues where people obviously couldn't find things. The content wasn't kind of knitting together in the way that we wanted. An example is our related content feature, which is a feature that works really well on the platform as a whole. It's designed to be generic in that basically it uses the platform's taxonomy. Every platform has a taxonomy file, and it uses that taxonomy to match up subject terms for the piece of content you're looking at and find relevant pieces of content that match. But it's flexible in that you can vary the relevance ranking depending on the platform that you're on. So the music platform has a music-specific taxonomy. The theology one has a theology taxonomy. Drama has a taxonomy that includes play titles, playwrights, periods, and so on. And so we can specify the logic there that, the platform should look for play title first, and then that will find the most relevant things. And if there's no matches for play title, it'll look for playwright, and so on. And so we have this feature, the playwright page, which is another version of the person page that we'd already used on other sites. And yeah, we had to do quite a bit of work to kind of re-index the content and think through what we needed to do to get the most relevant content appearing on that page. Because once we load the content and load the taxonomy, the platform just does that by itself. So it's really us that has to do the work to massage the content to make it appear properly. We can't go back to the developers and ask them to fix it. So that's one of the consequences of having a self-service platform where with those kind of automatic features, is that we have to pay a lot of attention ourselves to the glue, if you will, that holds everything together. Another example is linking up video performances with play texts and images and secondary content. This is something that wasn't really there on the old site. The old site had some like hard coding of, if you're looking at this video, we'd hard coded in some other videos that were relevant, but we wanted this to be a dynamic feature which will show all of the relevant content, images, secondary content, everything, and will just automatically refresh when we add new content. It wouldn't need manually updating. And so that meant, again, we needed to re-index a lot of that content and just, think through how when you have a video that's called the Hollow Crown, which is actually a performance of Richard II, you then get relevant content about Richard II to appear. Seems obvious, but it was something that needed quite a bit of kind of slightly panicky data mapping exercises a few weeks before launch. So where does this leave us now? I'm thinking here about, when I say live topics, I mean, these are kind of questions which are still live for us, which we don't have answers to, and which we think are probably, looking forward to the next 4 years, these are the kind of areas that are going to probably change and that we'll have to think about. I apologize for using two horrible words on here, hubification and product. These are both words which I've heard coined by Bloomsbury staff recently, and they're both related to the challenges of having multiple products within one site. And this relates to a kind of shift in the product strategy that has emerged since we embarked on this platform. Originally, we kind of assumed that most of our products would be like the Berg Fashion Library, which was a single subscription product. You pay an annual subscription, you get all of the content, and we keep adding more content to it. We keep adding front list books, and we get more partnerships with image sources, and we keep adding value and making it more attractive so that customers subscribe every year. But what's happened instead, for various reasons, is most of our platforms are now going more down the route of drama online, where you have lots of multiple smaller modules which customers can purchase. They can buy on perpetual access, they can purchase them separately, they can combine them in any way. And the first thing, the simple product, this is what our IT team were recently struggling with, kind of classifying how our products worked, and one of them suggested the word product to mean a platform which is just one product. And I just thought he had a speech impediment. I didn't know what on earth he was trying to say. But that's one possible option. But instead, we're moving towards what our CEO is very fond of using the word hub to talk about our digital products, subject hubs, and so on. So one of my team referred to this process as hubification, where you start off with something which is designed to just be one product, and then you have to expand it to bring in all these other content sets. And it means you really have to rethink how the navigation works on the site, how all these generic browse features work, how search works when these sites are now modular and users might have any number of combinations of these products. And I think this is a process that could logically continue. As I said, I think when we launched all these separate subject sites, it seemed a little bit quaint and old-fashioned, and I think that is a definite strength of the platforms, is that they have these subject-specific tools, and they're designed around the needs of users in those subject areas. But there's also, an obvious argument for combining things together because of interdisciplinarity. People who are interested in fashion are also interested in design and architecture, and to some extent, music. So there's many arguments in favour of bringing those together, kind of aggregating them. The danger is there that you lose what's distinctive and attractive about the current sites, which is perhaps part of why they've been successful. But on the other hand, does this matter? Do users even notice? I often ask myself, do users enter via the homepage, or do they more and more come in via discovery services and search engines, and they just land on a content page and take what they need and then go away? Do they even notice the name of the site they're on half the time? Are they using these bespoke tools that we've created for them? I mean, why should they? They're looking for their content to get their job done. They might not care about the names that we've given to our products. So these are questions, these are all kind of live questions that we've been aware of for years and that are perhaps now becoming a bit more pressing. We don't have definitive answers to them yet. We're going to keep talking to our users and our customers to understand these things better, to understand how people arrive on our platforms, how they want to use them. But I think these are the kind of questions that will inform how the platform and perhaps how our organization continues to develop over the next 4 years and beyond. Thank you.